Hey folks, Tito, Jeff Thitoff here with the Buckeye Blitz. Don't worry, I know I'm wearing colors that you might think are Northwestern colors. It's just because it's the golf shirt I had on today. It is the Buckeye Blitz, so we got a lot to talk about. Follow me on the X, That Happens. This is on Fanstream Sports, powered by DSP Media. Again, That Happens on the X. Follow me there. Download the app. The app is free, the Fanstream Sports app. We've got such great programming around the clock. It's free for Apple and Android users. Go check out the app, and like I said, download that. Also, you can find it at fanstreamsports.com. All right, let's talk first about the college ball rankings. Ohio State coming off their shellacking of Purdue with the shutout last week. New rankings came out. There were a couple upsets in college ball. Obviously, Miami lost their game to Georgia Tech, and that was a big loss for them and drops them down significantly in the rankings. Georgia also a loser last week. So now the new rankings come out, and 4 of the top 5 teams are from the Big Ten. You've got Oregon at 1, Ohio State at 2, Texas is 3rd, and then followed by Penn State and Indiana at 4 and 5. Then you got BYU at 6, Tennessee 7, followed by Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, and then Boise State. But the way the college ball rankings work, if this was the way it ended up, Georgia, even though they're ranked 12th, would be out of the playoffs because the highest ranked group of 5 conference winner gets a spot. So in this case, even though Georgia's 12th, they would be booted out of the college ball playoff. So, mad respect for the Big Ten, getting 4 teams in the top 5. You've got 1 loss Penn State, undefeated Indiana, 1 loss Ohio State, and undefeated Oregon in there. And we're going to find something out about this Ohio State and Indiana team again next week when the Buckeyes host the Hoosiers. It'll be by far the biggest game of the season for the Hoosiers as far as the toughest opponent they're going to face. They avoided Oregon on the schedule this year. They just came off a narrower kind of win over Michigan in Bloomington last week. But Indiana remains unblemished and moving forward. So let's go over the schedule for this week here in the Big Ten. On Friday night, you got UCLA against Washington on the road there for the Bruins. Hard to believe the Bruins have rallied and are all of a sudden significant again and trying to get bowl eligible here for the Bruins this year after how poorly they looked early in the season. Ohio State at Northwestern. That's a noon kick on Saturday, noon Eastern time, 11 a.m. out at Wrigley Field. I'll talk about the venue here in that one in a moment. Michigan State's at Illinois. Penn State is at Purdue. Nebraska's at USC. Rutgers at Maryland. And Oregon at Wisconsin. So obviously Indiana's not playing this week, so they get the week to prepare for Ohio State. Number 1, Oregon's got a night game in Camp Randall. Never an easy place to play. Oregon's got to be careful because even though they're a 13.5-point favorite over the Badgers, if the Badgers get it going early on, Camp Randall will be a really tough place to play in the evening. So, big game for the Badgers, big game for the Ducks as well. Really big game for Ohio State. I think Ohio State probably wants Oregon to keep winning so they can get a rematch with them in the Big Ten championship game and get a chance to knock off the number 1 team in the country in Indianapolis come December. So, let's talk about the Ohio State Northwestern game at Wrigley Field. Not a big fan of the venue. I don't like when football games get played in baseball-only stadiums. There's a lot of concern. Last year, I think Iowa played Northwestern there, and there were concerns about the turf. Now, if you look at the set, like the field setting, the way it is, behind the one end zone, which is close, I believe, to home plate, there is not much room. I think it's where, but there's not much room between the end of the goal, like the back end of the end zone, and a wall. And so that could be troublesome. You could see an injury there if something happens with that back wall. So I don't like the venue for that reason right there at all. It's a weird setup. I understand why they want to try to do it, but there are other options. Northwestern's field, I know they have the practice field that they've converted into like a home stadium while they're building something new, or doing renovation, I think is what they're doing now. But anyway, it's like an 11,000 seat thing they've got that's right on, might be 15,000. It's right on the lake. It's a beautiful spot for a game. But I know they want to get the cash grab and sell as many tickets as they can because we know Ohio State travels well. Why not go to Soldier Field? Why can't they work something out with the Bears and play at Soldier Field in a football-specific stadium where there's no worries about where the back end line is? And there's plenty of seating, and it's great sight lines. I just don't get why they are forcing this into this. I don't like the Wrigley Field thing. I don't like when they play at Fenway. I don't like the Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium. Just put it in a damn football stadium. We don't need all of these different baseball-only stadiums hosting football games, especially a college football game. It makes no sense to me. Soldier Field would have been great. Would have been a great environment, a great venue for Ohio State and Northwestern, and it could have been done. Kevin Warren, the former Big Ten commissioner, is now with the Chicago Bears. It could have been done. It's an easy thing. It's a phone call. Should have happened. Could have happened. And I hope it doesn't come back to bite either one of these teams in the ass with an injury at Wrigley Field. All right. Now the game for Ohio State. Northwestern is coming off a win over Purdue in their last game. It won, I think it's 26-20. Northwestern's not a good team this year. Ohio State really should win this one easily. It should be just about like the Purdue game was for Ohio State. They should be able to control both sides of the offense of the trenches, the offensive defensive line. They should be able to control that. It should be a good opportunity for Ohio State's offensive line to continue to work together. The hope in this is, look, Will Howard, he's put up fantastic numbers. Jeremiah Smith is still, he's setting records almost every game out there now for Ohio State for freshmen. He's the best freshman wide receiver in the country. I will argue anybody on that point. We need to get Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson carries early on, but hopefully the second half, we see a lot of the backups in the game. I want to see opportunities here for guys like Julian Sayin to get some snaps. I know that I know he's not technically the backup quarterback, but he's the guy I'd feel more comfortable with if there was an injury. And I'd rather have Julian Sayin coming in than Devin Brown. This Ohio State team, with all these weapons to throw to, have some of the Julian Sayin. Now, I will say this. What bothers me when they bring backups in is when teams go away from their offensive scheme. I don't like it when teams bring in the backups and then just sit on the ball. I think it's important that they run the same offense they would run if Sayin was the starter. If it was a key game, or even Devin Brown for that matter, if it was a key game, an important game, that's what I want them to try to simulate when they get these backups in. It does Julian Sayin no good to come in and hand off, punt. Or, hand off, drive down the field, whatever. It does no good for Julian Sayin to do that. It makes a lot more sense to try to get him real game experience in case it's needed. After this game, it's Indiana, it's Michigan, it's Big Ten championship game, and then it's who knows where we're going to be after that. Could be a home game in the playoffs, could be a bye, but you want to have a backup who can run that offense. And Devin Brown, I understand he's the safer play. Julian Sayin's the better play. And I wish coaches had more respect for the opposing players to let them and not get offended. Don't look at it as run up the score. If Ohio State gets up 35-0 at halftime and decides to bring in some backups in the third quarter, I hope Northwestern understands that if Ohio State wants to keep running their offense, that's the reason that's when they're going to do it. Not to run up the score. I'm not saying that's what the goal is. The goal is to get other players comfortable in real game situations. If Julian Sayin has to start a game for Ohio State, the Buckeyes are not going to run the ball 35 times, 40 times in that game. Because they'll be playing against Indiana or Michigan or Oregon or a playoff game. And they need to be able to use these weapons they have on offense. That's the only way to get these guys going. So I hope Ohio State gets a big lead, gets the starters out, and then runs the offense with the backups in there. And that's on both sides of the ball. Be aggressive with the defense if backups come in. Be as aggressive as you are with the offense if the backups come in on that one as well. So Northwestern's offense, nothing to get excited about. I think Ohio State's defense, and when you got Cody Simon's been all over the field lately. I've heard his name called more in the last few weeks than I think I heard in the first 5 weeks of the season, 5 or 6 games combined to start things off. Cody Simon's a beast. He's been a maniac lately, a very important tone setter for this defense. You've also got JTT and Jack Sawyer both coming off big games and playing well. Jack Sawyer had the return for the touchdown, the fumble return, which I'm glad he had a chance to do that. So, and also Lathan Ransom. Seeing Lathan Ransom is very important to this team. He's a violent player on the field. He's a smart player. He missed the Penn State game. You could tell they missed him, but he played well against Purdue. So we'll keep an eye on this defense again, see what they can do. The Buckeyes, though, they're first in the nation in total defense. I think they're only giving up around 250 yards a game. They're allowing like 10 or 11 points a game. I think it's just under 11 points a game. And the only team that's had success on Ohio State's defense is Oregon. When Ohio State gave up, I think, over 500 yards in that game. But no one else. They've had times their defense is bent, but not broken. And it's I expect Ohio State to dominate this game from the start. It's a big game. They're playing at Wrigley Field for these guys. I'm sure they're excited about it. It's a weird setup, but Anyway, I think Ohio State rolls this game. The spread opened up at, I think, 30, got down to 28. Now I think it's 28 and a half. And I think Ohio State covers this game. I'm going to make a prediction on this one. I'm going to say it's going to be 45-3, Ohio State over Northwestern. That's it for the Buckeye Blitz. I'm Tito, Jeff Thitoff. We got a lot more to talk about this weekend after the Ohio State game. Ohio State men's basketball, they've got a big game this weekend against Texas A&M on the road. That'll be huge for that one. And we'll keep track on the Ohio State women's basketball team as well. We'll do all that coming up. Thanks so much for tuning in. @ThatHappens on the X is where you can find me. And again, fanstreetsports.com. Go to the website, download the app. It's free. We'll talk again soon.